Welcome to Battlefront Stories. Here we bring forgotten battles, real soldier diaries, and untold stories of war back to life. Witness history, one front line at a time. General George Smith Patton. Jr.'s life is one of the most fascinating, controversial, and action-packed epics, not only in American military history, but also in the history of world warfare. Here is his detailed story from his roots to his mysterious death. George S. Patton Jr. was born on November 11, 1885, in the San Gabriel suburb of Los Angeles, to an aristocratic family of Irish, Scottish, English, and French descent, with a strong military background. Although he showed severe signs of dyslexia during his childhood and learned to read and write very late, he possessed an incredible memory and immense ambition. He overcame this learning difficulty with a passion great enough to memorize classic military strategy books. One of his most interesting traits was his spiritual world. He held a firm belief in reincarnation, convinced that in his past lives he had been a Greek hoplite, a Roman legionnaire, or a cavalryman for Napoleon. Throughout his life, he claimed to know many historical battlefields like the back of his hand, as if he had fought there before. He began his military education at the Virginia Military Institute, where his father and grandfather had also studied, and later graduated from the West Point Military Academy. A versatile and ambitious athlete, he was the sole American competitor in the modern pentathlon at the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, finishing fifth. Following the Olympics, he traveled to Saumur, France to take lessons from master fencers. Upon returning to America, he wrote a new sword combat doctrine for the U.S. cavalry and designed the Model 1913 cavalry saber, which came to be known by his name. His first real combat experience came in 1916 as an aide to General John J. Pershing during the expedition to capture the Mexican rebel Pancho Villa. There, he led a surprise armed assault using motorized vehicles for the first time in history and made a name for himself in the national press. When the United States entered World War I in 1917, he went to Europe with General Pershing. Patton became one of the first to recognize the potential of the newly invented tanks. He established the American Light Tank School in 1917 and personally learned to drive French Renault FT tanks. He was severely wounded in the leg while leading his troops on foot from the front lines during the Saint-Mihiel and Meuse-Argonne offensives. Thanks to his heroism and tank tactics, he received the Distinguished Service Cross and had ended the war as a colonel. During the interwar period, he helped develop the future of armored warfare alongside his close friend Dwight D. Eisenhower, though they often faced pushback from the high command. During this time, he also built his legendary visual image, wearing his custom ivory-handled revolvers at all times. His absolute obsession with discipline, demanding that his soldiers be clean-shaven and wear ties and steel helmets, even in the heat of battle, earned him the nickname Old Blood and Guts. World War II was the pinnacle of his career. In 1942, he commanded troops during the North African landings, restored discipline to the shattered U.S. Second Corps, and won the Battle of El Gueter. In 1943, during the invasion of Sicily, he aggressively raced against his British rival, General Montgomery, to capture Messina first. However, his career suffered a massive blow during this campaign when he slapped and threatened two soldiers suffering from battle fatigue, accusing them of cowardice. This scandal outraged the American public, leading Eisenhower to relieve him of command and bench him for a long period. The Allies used his sideline status to their advantage by placing him in command of a phantom army made of inflatable tanks and fake radio traffic in eastern England. Believing Patton was the best Allied commander, the Germans were tricked into thinking the main invasion would occur at Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. After the actual D-Day landings, when the Allied advance stalled, Eisenhower unleashed Patton and his Third Army. Patton used the German blitzkrieg tactics against them, advancing across France with such blistering speed that he outran his own supply lines, forcing the High Command to cut his fuel to slow him down. His greatest military masterpiece occurred during the winter of 1944 at the Battle of the Bulge, when the Germans launched a surprise counteroffensive in the Ardennes forest, trapping the 101st Airborne Division at Bastogne. Patton accomplished the impossible. He turned his entire Third Army 90 degrees north in freezing conditions, covering over 100 kilometers in just 3 days to break the siege and defeat the Germans. By the end of the war, his forces had advanced deep into Europe, meeting Soviet troops at the Elbe River. As a staunch anti-communist, Patton publicly stated that the Soviets were the real enemy and suggested rearming the defeated German army to march on Moscow. His controversial statements and lenient administrative policies regarding former Nazi officials caused a major political crisis, leading Eisenhower to relieve him of his command once again. While preparing to return home, Patton was involved in a low-speed car crash near Mannheim, Germany, on December 9, 1945. While others in his vehicle were unharmed, Patton was paralyzed from the neck down. He died suddenly in the hospital on December 21, 1945, from pulmonary edema and heart failure. The suspicious circumstances of the crash, the lack of an autopsy, and his anti-Soviet political potential fueled enduring conspiracy theories. Following his wishes, he was buried at the Luxembourg American Cemetery alongside his fallen soldiers. This is just one side of the war. For more, check out Battlefront Stories and make sure to like the video and subscribe for upcoming episodes.